Why, oh why, does the world love taking innocent words from our childhood and ruining them in such a perverse way? Why does the word centipede immediately come to mind? Anyway, hope that sets the tone for this video on inflation, a term that I can only imagine as a child you associated with balloons or bouncy castles, and more recently probably associate with the airbed that you sleep on in your friend's living room because who the Airbnb can afford to book a hotel. Much like blowing up an airbed, inflation is like watching your savings getting blown up. Inflation is when the value of seemingly everything else grows in comparison to the value of your money. The longer you hold on to it, the worse it gets, like a wee at the end of a long car journey or that doorknob in Home Alone 2. Inflation is therefore described most commonly as a rise in prices, but when we look behind the blame of other prices, we reveal that the perpetrator all along was declining purchasing power. We can shout at the milk for increasing from £1 to £2, but when we look around and realise that all of the products in the supermarket have done exactly the same thing, it's time to take a hard look at the usefulness of our precious savings. Time to swallow our pride and hope it has some nutritional value in lieu of being able to afford a substantial meal. This is all because most money is fiat money, meaning that it is not backed, held up, by any tangible assets such as gold, silver or sweet moonshine. Yet the government has kindly declared that you are allowed to use these rotting paper promises. How very kind of them. Most countries commonly use CPI, that's Consumer Price Index, to indicate what the inflation rate is. They say, "Oh, I see your food shop last year cost you €100 and this year it cost you €102. That means inflation only 2%. Which sounds reasonable until you see that their definition of a food shop has changed from sustenance able to feed a family of real humans for a week to 2 boxes of off-brand cornflakes, buy one get one free custard creams and an extra large can of Spam. I hope it's pretty clear by now how inflation is generally quite a bad thing for the average person, but of course the media will argue that inflation can be viewed positively. But this is usually from the vantage point of somebody who's already fortunate enough to own assets and is sitting there with a box of popcorn watching the prices increase while they contributed the grand total of diddly and squat to achieve this gain. Remind me what the nickname for people called rich is again? I wouldn't be so cheesed off at inflation in general, as it's understandable that prices rise, but it's the fact that central banks cause it deliberately at the cost of your savings by creating new money out of thin air, funneling it into society in an attempt to stimulate the economy's productivity, in the same way that you might funnel profiteroles into your stomach in an attempt to stimulate your indigestion's productivity. In summary, inflation is a controllable trait of fiat currency that makes the poor poorer and the rich richer. It's a whirlpool where those at the centre are exhausted, getting nowhere and often drowning, whilst the few furthest away are hoarding all of the armbands and pool noodles while shouting, "Have you tried swimming harder?"